All right, today we're going to dive into a book that takes on some of the biggest questions out there about faith. It's called Debunking Atheism, and it sets out to dismantle the most common arguments against belief. So let's break down its core claims and the method it uses, one step at a time. So the book kicks things off with this really powerful question. Center it on a true story. It's a question designed to make you stop and think, to challenge what you thought you knew about belief and skepticism right from the get-go. And here he is, the man at the center of it all, Antony Flew. I mean, this guy was a giant in atheist philosophy for decades. Then, late in his life, something pretty shocking happened. He completely changed his mind. According to the book, it was the evidence that did it. Things like the incredible complexity of DNA, the way our universe seems perfectly fine-tuned for life. That's what led him to believe in a creator. His story is really the launch pad for the book's entire argument. Okay, so how does this book actually go about its critique? Well, it's not just about offering opinions. The author lays out this really specific analytical framework for taking these arguments apart. Let's see how it all works. So here's the game plan, the three-step process the book uses for every single objection. First, you've got to identify the hidden, faulty assumptions that an argument is built on. Second, you look for any place where facts are being twisted or used selectively. And third, you put a name to the specific logical mistake, the fallacy, that's being made. This is the toolkit the book uses to tackle 5 huge objections. All right, let's put this framework to the test with the first major objection the book tackles. It's the classic philosophical puzzle known as the problem of evil. And this is a big one, right? A lot of people see this as maybe the strongest argument against the existence of an all-good God. So here it is, the classic question. It basically boils down to this. If God is all-powerful, meaning he can do anything, and all-good, meaning he wants to stop evil, then why is there so much suffering in the world? Why doesn't he just stop it? Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The book claims this whole argument is built on something called the black or white fallacy. The idea is that the question forces you into a false choice. Either God gets rid of all evil immediately, or he must not be all-powerful or all-good. There's no middle ground. This slide just breaks it down perfectly. On one side, you have the assumption the objection makes, that God has to get rid of all evil, like right now. But on the other side, you've got the book's rebuttal. Maybe there are other possibilities. The book argues that God might have good reasons to allow evil, like making sure we have genuine free will, or allowing us to grow and develop character by facing challenges. Okay, let's move on to the next major point the book tackles. This one is all about the demand for scientific proof, which is a huge part of modern skepticism. You've probably heard this one a lot. The logic seems pretty simple, right? If God exists, we should be able to find some kind of hard scientific evidence. And if we can't, then believing is just a leap in the dark. So, according to the book, this objection is committing what's called a burden of proof fallacy. The thinking here is that it's not a one-way street. It's not just on the believer to prove God exists. The book argues that making a hard claim that God doesn't exist, well, that's a claim too, and it also requires some kind of justification. And here's the crucial point the book makes. The objection is based on this very narrow assumption that the only real evidence is something you can measure in a lab. But the book pushes back, saying, hey, wait a minute, that completely throws out other ways we know things are true, like philosophical reasoning, historical documents, or even the kind of testimony we use in a court of law. All right, for our third objection, the book shifts gears a little bit. We're moving away from pure philosophy and getting into the primary text of Christianity itself, the Bible. So the argument here is a pretty common one. It's that the Bible is just unreliable because it's packed with contradictions. You know, like the different Gospels telling the same story in slightly different ways. People say those errors undermine the whole thing. And the book's response? It calls this a classic straw man fallacy. It's arguing that critics build up this easy-to-attack version of the Bible, treating it like a modern science textbook that has to be 100% factually perfect, and then they knock that down, making its flaws seem way worse than they are. So here's how the book breaks down its response. First off, it says you can't treat the Bible like one single book. It's a library with history, poetry, letters, all kinds of writing. Second, it points out that tiny inconsistencies are totally normal in ancient historical documents. And finally, it highlights that the core claims are actually consistent and backed up by outside sources, like non-Christian historians and even archaeological finds. Okay, so after breaking down all these specific objections one by one, the book kind of zooms out to show a bigger picture, a larger pattern that it sees running through all of these arguments. This table is just a perfect summary of the book's whole approach. We've already walked through the first three, right? The problem of evil, the lack of evidence, and biblical contradictions. But the book uses the same method on other big arguments too, like the claim that religion is the main cause of harm, which it calls a false cause fallacy, or the idea that science has disproven religion, which it says often relies on an appeal to authority. Seeing them all together really shows the pattern the book is trying to expose. So what's the bottom line here? The book's big conclusion is that the major roadblocks to faith aren't really about evidence. Instead, they're these philosophical objections that, according to the author, are built on shaky ground and logical mistakes. And once you clear all that away, the book argues that Christianity stands as a totally rational and credible way of looking at the world. And that really leaves us with one big final question to chew on. The book we've looked at makes a powerful case for using logic and reason to examine belief. But is that the whole story? Can logic alone really settle something as personal and profound as faith? That's something for you to think about.